Hello, Dita.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Steven. This is Dita.
Hello.
And this podcast, or show, I don't know what we're going to call it, was inspired by a social media post that initiated a very interesting conversation on a topic that we haven't really seen properly discussed on the internet. And so we decided that we would address that ourselves. And the topic is the difference between, how I would phrase it, health and diets, and how a lot of people are trying to figure out what the healthiest diet is, but they aren't actually adhering to that. So do you want to go ahead and explain a little bit more about what we're talking about?
Yeah, so there is this post on Instagram that I happened to see after not touching Instagram for about 10 months. So I don't even know what's out there, what the most popular thing is or the thing is nowadays. But I see, especially veganism, put in a negative light a lot of times. And the way I feel about it is that people keep using labels and just label different, mainly diets, not even entire lifestyles, because there's so much more to lifestyle than just what you eat. And they're just discussing the labels, but not knowing what is actually happening underneath that. For example, if you label someone a vegan, how do you know what they're doing their entire life? How do you even know what they eat? And at this point, I guess I should say that I have considered myself a vegan for almost 24 years now, but even the word is still strange to me, because what is vegan? Where does it even start? Can we do anything that doesn't affect animals? Because it's usually about animals in one way or the other, not hurting animals, or someone loving animals too much, or not wanting to eat animals, or doesn't want animals to suffer, or all kinds of things around it. But is it only about eating animals and not letting them suffer in a typical industry where they raise them, or is it not hurting animals at all? Because everything we do, and all the production of things and manufacturing, it all hurts nature and wildlife as well. And I guess that's the hardest part for me. What does the word even mean? What does vegan mean? Because there are people also that call themselves vegan that just happen to not eat any meat. And there are those that will not wear any leather or not use anything that's made out of leather, from shoes to clothing to furniture, whatever, and so on. It's different stages. Or some people even avoid anything from insects or even bee pollen or honey, while others don't. So there's such a wide range even within that, and I don't even know what the official definition is for it. But I think it's very subjective. And then beyond that, if we go beyond that, I feel again that the label doesn't say anything about what the person does. So it's really confusing, and I feel there's a lot of misinformation out there. So all this fighting back and forth on social media, what the right diet is, and anyone posting about, oh no, you should eat this way because this is how I feel the best. Well, that might be true, but again, just using the one word, labeling someone's diet, which is really just a diet, it's labeling, not even a whole lifestyle, doesn't address what the person is doing, their everything, the whole picture in their day-to-day life. So I was pointing out under this post where it was like a carousel of pictures, and many different things were addressed there. But within that series of pictures, there was one that was saying or suggesting that if you're a vegan, you're depressed. So obviously I started laughing because I'm everything but. And I know so many people are depressed, and what does it help the nation on antidepressants? Or what is the percentage?
It's like 70 or 80%
It is
population.
huge. And yeah, think about it. How many people are even plant-based or vegan, if you even like that label? What is that? 1% even? I don't even know if it's 1%. So right there, it would be like everything thrown out the window. Like, how could that even be? Doesn't make any sense.
Well, may I interject quickly?
Go ahead.
So I lived in Austin for a while, And while I was there, I was a part of many different communities. And I had a couple different communities that were vegan. They considered themselves vegan. And so we would have potlucks all the time and different things. And one group that was vegan were some of the most unhealthy people I knew. They didn't eat meat, but they ate all the processed food you can find.
It's not even food, if you ask me.
So yeah, and I would have discussions about how that was actually really harmful to the environment, harmful to animals, even though they weren't eating animal directly. It was still monoculture, which is the eradication of all animals in that space of land. So it's very harmful. The other group was some of the healthiest people I knew, and they also we had a really good lifestyle and community, and it was all whole foods. So it's whole food veganism, ideally local, but also they were very active. And they had community, and they had used different modalities for healing and community and ceremony and stuff. So two different communities of people that consider themselves vegan, and very different on a health test, so to speak. So
as an example, they're labeled the same but completely different lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then again, what is vegan, and why would I call myself vegan? I don't like labels anymore. I used to say I'm vegan. Nowadays I don't really say much unless it's necessary. But it's going to be 24 years that I had not eaten meat. Now I have to count how many times it was, maybe 2-3 times. There are days when I decided to try some fish, for example. I think once it was 20 years ago, once about 10 years ago. So even if I say 24 years vegan, someone would attack me if someone, that kind of a vegan. You're lying, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, these were just one day and a few bites of trying it. And then I remember one time it felt so good for my body. It was like a vitamin, like a supplement, that I asked for it the next day again, and I was gagging just looking at it. So I couldn't even eat it the second time. How interesting. But it was just something that my body was just triggered, and I felt like trying it. And that's how short-lived it was. And then the second time around, 10 years ago or so, I think it was some sardines. And then last year, I decided to raise chicks and a baby turkey for the doggy that you can't see in the video here. But I wanted, for food security, because so many things were happening, just in case, have some protein and have eggs. And once they started laying eggs, I tried some of their eggs too. So this is me, 24 years vegan, where someone would attack me about it, right? And say, oh, you're not a vegan because you've had this and this. But anyway, other than that 24 years, I never touched dairy and never eat meat and other things either, besides what I just pointed out. Now, with that said, that's nothing to me. And so when he pointed out the two different communities he knew, I know a lot of people, and I think nowadays, people that are going vegan or younger generations, I'm in my 40s, I think there's a lot of propaganda around it, there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of agenda behind it, why they're pushing veganism and plant-based, this and that, and it's all pushed with the wrong, unhealthiest things you can imagine. I personally have never once had, not once, any of those made-up meat substitute things. I don't even know what they are. I don't even want to know. I have not once had any in 24 years, but I do know a lot of people who lives on these, fake cold cuts and fake sausage and these different things that are made of, I don't even know what, fake burgers, you name it, the entire list. I've never had one thing of any of them. So right there, think about the difference. So I've always done the whole food thing, and 10 years of that, I did macrobiotics, 7 years of that raw. So those are kind of considered extreme too. But they always focus on minimally processed, ideal not processed, whole foods, which is not what I see nowadays. And so when people point out how malnourished people are, vegan people, or even depressed, well, I can't really relate to that as far as in my life, but I can understand how unhealthy people's lifestyle and choices are. I had known a person too that was vegan and obese, and lived on 3 things literally, just French fries, bread, and beer. That was his diet, and I don't even touch those things. I don't even know when I ate processed bread in my life. French fries, it's not something I eat ever, or beer or alcohol. So think about the differences. And then I think that's still nothing as far as a whole lifestyle, because what else is going on in a person's life? But in this social media post that started this whole discussion, they were discussing birth control. So many girls and women are on that. That's something also I have never in my life touched, because I wouldn't touch any kind of prescription or medication or drugs or anything with a 10-foot pole. So now how can you compare someone who's been on that for decades and is having issues, any kind of women's issues or health issues, to someone who's never done that? I mean, this is day and night, right? So I've never done any of these things, and then living in a toxic home, using toxic clothes, constantly wearing toxic clothes, drinking, partying, not having a good sleep cycle. There's so many things, so many aspects to health and living healthy and getting the right nourishment. And even if you eat whole food based, plant-based diet, which I don't really like that word either, diet. Well, is it all organic, or is it just conventional whatever food or made up food, or is it really fresh fruits and vegetables, or is it organic, or is it from a farmer's market as fresh as possible, or are you growing your own? There's so many levels and different stages to your own healthiness. And the other thing is, whether you believe in blood tests or not, I don't think they say everything that needs to be said, or if they're not telling you what's on a cellular level, and I think that's what's important. But if you are comparing blood tests, which a lot of people are discussing on social media too, I've had one done in 2018, 5 years ago, so I was 18 years vegan then, and when they called, they paused first, and they said, well, got the results back, and I'm like, when and what? I didn't know if there's a problem or what. And the guy said, well, it was off the chart. So it was the result, the numbers were way higher than, in a good way, than where you could be placed, because it was one of those things, a very expensive panel to be approved for a certain thing. So they had criteria, and you had to fit in, and the top criteria was, which was the best to be in, but I was way above that. So, as you could say, proof is in the pudding, but like I said, I'm not a 100% believer in blood tests, but that's an indicator, and especially when people are arguing about this and comparing things and people's blood tests, well, then what do you want to see?
Yeah, may I add to this?
Yes, sure.
So I've been all of the major diets, from pescatarian, vegetarian, vegan, carnivore, paleo, Mediterranean, and one thing that's really important that people never mention is that, again, it's the quality of the food. I believe that all those diets can work well for most people if they're eating quality food, which means zero processed food, zero additives that have chemicals or poisons mixed in with them, like salts and different pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, any of the sides. And then it's just tailored a little bit to you. If you're really healthy, you probably don't have allergies, but if you're not, or you're exposed to lots of other stuff, you might. Now, if you're eating any of those diets and you're eating the cheap version of them, the low quality food, you're gonna have problems. And what happens is when you switch from one diet to another, is you're giving your body a break because it's receiving so much of one type of poison or something else, that it's actually being able to recover from that. So you feel like, oh, I'm much better. This is the new diet for me. That's why people get so excited they start diet hopping.
Yeah, this is what I always point out. Yeah.
Is that you're receiving relief from the one diet, but you're moving to another one, which is giving you short-term benefits because you were so imbalanced in the ones that bring some balance to you and your body's healing in different areas. But then after a while, if you're again not eating the quality food, you're gonna have malnourishment in a different area, and you're gonna start to get sick on that new diet. So pointing to a diet as your problem is not the first thing to do. It's looking at the quality of the food you're eating and recognizing that maybe you need more variety, because a lot of people don't have enough variety in their diet, and that's a huge complaint. I have been very challenged with being vegan. and getting enough variety, because stores have so little variety. It's really hard to find food that is even remotely healthy, and then to have a variety that I need to feel good. But that's true with most of these diets, is there's not enough variety, and you have to really audit your way for it. And restaurants don't give healthy food. They give tasty food, and it looks really pretty, but it's not healthy. So I think the bigger issue is that people are confusing diets for health. That
or they just rely on a diet and forget the rest of the lifestyle.
Yeah, or even worse. So yeah, well, exactly. So I would bundle that into health.
Again, 90% is missing there.
But like, firstly, healthy food part that falls in the diet category. But then, yeah, the rest of it's your lifestyle.
And then, I mean, with the food too. Yes, you could go to restaurants and order healthy foods, right? But there comes the energetics too. Well, how is that prepared? What kind of environment? How much stress? How much rushing? How is that plate of food getting to your table? What did it go through? Think about all the stages it went through. And then if it's cooked food, what water was it cooked in? What kind of pots? Usually it's aluminum pots, all the restaurants supply. And usually it's tap water, which I call city sludge. It's absolute poison. So that's what's concentrated in the food, and then usually seasoned with table salt, which is another poison. So is it even possible to eat in a restaurant healthy? I don't even know. There are very few restaurants where you can, but it's hard. I mean, where we live right now, we don't know one that's really healthy, and whether it's organic even. So if you ever eat out, I think already it's impossible to eat completely healthy. But when we do go out, we always take activated charcoal. I'm the founder of She's Into Organics, and activated charcoal's one of the things we take daily as well in the mornings for just daily maintenance detox. But if we go out and we just never know what you're eating in a restaurant, we take some charcoal with the food. And what was the other thing you were mentioning about when we first met, you were pointing out something to me about regenerative farming.
Yeah, so
the plant-based things.
I could talk about both the carnivore diet and veganism. Mm-hmm. I think they're two extremes that actually have a lot in common in some regard. So in the post we just read, the girl is currently, her new thing is the carnivore diet. Like, that's the end all be all diet. She's tried all the others, and this is the one that's working for her.
Well, it's not that new. I mean, I've known her, and she's struggled in different lifestyles, and she's a sweetheart. But it's something she's been doing as of lately for however long, and also doing other things in her lifestyle. So I don't know how much the diet is, but this is what's working for her. So she's really advocating for this.
Right. So my point is that she's been diet hopping, and her current diet is the carnivore diet.
And that's by the way, it's very common. So you pointed out one thing, that people switch to something, mm-hmm. and they feel better because they might have been missing certain things. But the other thing is when people find a different diet, or whatever you want to call it, I really don't like that word, different way of eating. A lot of these different ways of eating are actually somewhat restricted. So it's not just going from one thing to the other extreme, or getting different nutrients and you feel like, oh, I'm getting something you didn't, so you feel better. But it's essentially an elimination diet, so you just feel better because you're eating fewer things, especially if you're going from the average standard American diet to any one other thing, because they're all excluding some things from their, what's called food. Right. Most things are not even food, but people eat. And so you immediately feel better because you usually, no matter what kind of lifestyle is or diets are promoted, usually it's involving real foods. So that's already one big thing. Mm-hmm. But then again, I think in the vegan world, there's a lot of this fake stuff. So I don't even know what it would be like to switch to that, and if the person would feel better. I have no idea.
Well, so I'd like to continue on what I was saying, in that also I'm building on what you just said. So the carnivore diet is an elimination diet because you're eliminating almost all foods except for meat. And meat generally doesn't have allergens in it.
You mean pure meat, like
Yes.
not hormone drenched and
Right.
antibiotics and all that.
So that's the caveat is
The
that
shots and all that.
so you need, if you are carnivore, you basically need to be getting your animal products from a farm that you're actually allowed to visit the animals. If not, they're not okay to eat because they're going to be drenched in hormones. They're going to be full of bad hormones also. These animals have been tortured and stressed their entire lives, and you don't need that. You will literally put your body through that too. So it's really hard on your body to eat.
And put that in your body, yes.
It's really bad energy for you. It's not going to go well. And something called bioamplification. Those animals are also fed poison, and that poison accumulated in their system. So if you were eating poisoned grains, you would get 1x poison. If you eat a cow that was fed those same grains, you get 7x poison. So you're actually poisoning yourself.
Well, it depends on what part of the animal too. So many people are talking about eating liver, which by the way, I grew up on organ meats and homemade, all homemade food. Everything was homemade, nothing processed. And I was such a sickly child. It was normal to be sick a few times a year. It was normal. And that's when they would give us medication. I mean, is that incredible? Or I like liver. Certain things people think of as disgusting and they have to be encouraged to even taste. I loved all those things. There's things I love. There's dishes I love that involve these kind of organ meats and different meats, and I just choose not to because I also saw the animals murdered in the house, slaughtered, blood splattering everywhere. And quite frankly, I personally believe if everyone grew up like that, I think at least 90% of the people would be like, no, thank you. You're not gonna murder animals in your house and chop their heads off and see them dying and struggling while they're dying and then eat it. I mean, it's just not what people experience, so they can't even comprehend such a thing. But I am a firm believer that just wouldn't continue in most people's lives, especially if they had to do it. One thing to watch it and then do it too, maybe is another step. But the point is, people just talk about this. It's like black or white. Like, no, this is the healthy way and this is what you should be eating, and then you're good and then you're not depressed and blah, 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 blah. But this is how I grew up. And I had dental issues and sick every year, all the time. Well, how does that work then? And up to, 19 or so, I lived that way. So how is that possible? That since then, 24 years almost, plant-based, vegan, whatever you want to call it, I'm so healthy. So again, there are so many things, so many aspects to lifestyle and so many more things. And it's not just the foods, it's really all the superfoods, the tonic herbs, the medicinal foods, all the things that you're also eating that are not part of the average person's lifestyle and diet. And with the poor quality food, no matter what we get nowadays, we can buy them organic, whatever, vegetables and fruits and whatever you can find, but what's the nutrient profile? Well, how much nourishment do you actually get? And what kind of state is people's guts in? I mean, if you don't have the guts, the digestive system, healthy digestive system to absorb the nutrients, it doesn't matter what kind of healthy foods you buy, because you're not going to be, again, it's just the famous saying I always tell you, you are what you eat. I think it's the biggest lie, and it's misleading because it's simply not true. You can put all the good things in you, but if you don't have a digestive system that's healthy and absorbs all the good things and gets into the cells, the nutrients, then are you really that? No. You have to be able to assimilate all the nutrients and make use of them. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. So that's the other problem, I think, and I'm seeing that. I don't know when all this started with the glyphosate and the Roundup and all these chemicals out there that are just worse and worse and worse and to a higher level. But most people, probably including ourselves, our guts affected. And if you eat anything not organic and sprayed, you're just doing that to yourself. Every single day you're contributing to basically ruining your digestive system. So it's just worse and worse and worse. So how healthy can you eat and really truly get the benefits of it and be healthy with a digestive system that's so compromised.
I'd like to reiterate that and explain a little bit more in case you're not familiar with what she just said. If you're eating food that either has antibiotics in it, so you're eating meat, or Roundup, glyphosate, what you're doing is that you have a microbiome. These are living organisms in you that you depend on to digest the food you eat. You don't digest the food that you eat yourself, or you don't absorb it into your bloodstream. The animals inside of you will break that down further, and when the enzymes they release get absorbed into your bloodstream. So if you kill all of those microorganisms, all that's happening when you eat is the food's coming from here and getting pushed through and coming out without you absorbing any of the nutrients from it. So you could eat a lot of healthy foods and eat a lot, but you're not getting anything, which is why I think a lot of people get kind of addicted to sugars, is that sugars will go into your bloodstream and you'll get energy from those sugars, but you're going to be malnourished. So you can be obese and malnourished at the same time because you're not absorbing any of the vitamins or minerals or enzymes that your body needs for you to feel good, to look good, and for your body to heal and regenerate properly. And that, I think, brings me back to the point about regenerative agriculture and the flip side of veganism being harmful to animals also, is that there is a way to grow food that does no harm and is better than organic. It's called regenerative agriculture. And there's a few companies that do this. I think one's like 1,000 Acres Farm, and they sell a lot of animal products. But there's also regenerative agriculturally grown different types of food. And they do it in harmony with nature. So you have biodiversity, and you have animals and plants living in the same environment, creating a natural abundance that is good for everybody, and everybody's happy and feels good. And it's very inexpensive to do, and the food nutrient profile is very healthy. And so the other side I was getting to was...
Did you say it's very inexpensive?
It is very inexpensive to grow that way.
And yet they sell these things for a lot more, right? They're more expensive usually?
Yes, they are. So it is, in my opinion, I think factually, it's the most profitable type of food to grow. The reason it's so profitable is because people will pay a lot of money for it because there's not a lot of people doing it. Because you have to unlearn everything. If you go to school for agriculture, you are not taught this. You are taught how to use pesticides and fertilizers and all of that, because every industry in the universe has been compromised by big business. So everything requires high inputs and high to get outputs. So to grow food, you have to have all these inputs. It's not true in nature. If you just let everything cycle around, it grows just fine. But when you go monoculture, you got rid of all the diversity. So all the things that were fertilizing the one thing to feed the other thing and do all that is gone. So now you have to bring in stuff. You have to bring in the fertilizers. And then because there are no natural predators there, you have to bring in pesticides to protect the plants and all that. So what this environment looks like is a toxic wasteland. Literally, the ground is chemically hazardous. People have to wear special suits to go on these farms to grow your food. It's really unhealthy there. Everything dies. So this is the worst form of veganism or anything, is where people are eating these soy diets, which is also really bad for them, but every animal that would come across there is killed, from insect to mouse to deer. Any animal that comes in there is dead. So that's considered the new vegan, and it's not vegan at all. It's the worst thing for everybody. And the product that's produced that's considered vegan is even bad for the person who's eating it. We don't need that much soy or any. And it's loaded with chemicals, and that's killing you. So people...
I think there's such a big difference now with people that are finding out now. Yeah, I should be vegan, what that means versus when I just, as a teenager, back in, what was I, early 90s, I had the idea. That my idea of being a vegan was just, I don't want to eat meat, I don't want to eat the animals. That was it. And nowadays it's a whole different story.
Yeah. Well, I grew up I grew up with the idyllic scenario for what a vegan would be like. My grandparents had a companion garden on 5 acres of land. There's all these different plants that were supporting each other, and there were plenty of animals and stuff that go through there. And I thought that's how all food was grown. So you want to know where your food comes from. And when you go there, you want to be happy to be there. You want to feel good in that environment, because that is gonna. If you feel good where your food's grown, that food's gonna make you feel good when you eat it. And if you see an animal and it's living a wonderful life, maybe you'll still want to eat it, and that would be a better animal to eat than the animal that you go and you cry because you realize that this animal didn't just have one bad day. This animal never had a good day. And it was absolutely unnecessary for that suffering to happen for you to eat. It's absolutely unnecessary. Our food system, our industrial food system, is incredibly inefficient. It's intentionally inefficient to create artificial scarcity and to have prices be very high. It took hundreds of years of extermination and destruction of the land in the Americas to get to the point we're at now, where food can be profitable and where people have to all be in the system. And it's a very sad history. But as people are waking up to this and realize, you look around, you see everyone's sick. And it's super profitable for the big companies to have everybody sick, but it's not natural at all. And so people are going back to this. And so if you're somebody who wants to learn more, research regenerative agriculture or restoration agriculture or permaculture and enjoy it. It's beautiful, it's life-changing, and it gives me a lot of hope for what's possible. I've seen so many lives change for it. And whatever you might be going through, processed food is not the answer. And once you start eating healthier, you will get better with whatever's wrong with you.
Well, yes, that's just one aspect of what you can do for your health, in my opinion.
There's a lot more to it, but it's a healthy start. And actually, in fairness, permaculture is also a lifestyle that's often confused as just how your food is grown. So.
You want to elaborate on that?
That I don't feel I'm quite knowledgeable enough to properly share everything that permaculture is. There's like 11 principles to permaculture, and I used to know them all.
I mean, this entire conversation could go on for 10 hours,
yeah.
But I think the conclusion is that labels and diets and just pointing out what someone's eating is such a small part of a whole lifestyle, and the label doesn't say anything. Again, it could be endless different ways of living that vegan or carnivore lifestyle, whatever it is that you want to label it as, keto or whatever it is. Like I said in the beginning, it could be entirely different people, different lifestyles, doing different things. So what is the point of arguing about these things and posting that this is the way you should be eating, this is the way everyone should live because this is what feels good to me? It has to be whatever your name is, insert that, and that diet, that's the best for you if you feel your best. So if your name is Sarah, the Sarah diet is the best for you. and this is, and of course only if you feel like I feel normally as a superwoman. That's how you should be feeling, amazing and jumping out of bed every day and full of energy, no matter what time of the day it is. And even when you go through horrible things, like I just had a horrible few weeks in a row, and still, and you know, if you don't feel that way, you're not eating ideally, you're not living the ideal lifestyle for your body and mind and your psyche and everything that you need to function. It's not just vegan or keto or carnivore. There's so much more to it. So I wish people stopped arguing and even fighting and being mean about it on social media.
I think that it's
but
important.
that also says a lot. If that's what you're doing, maybe it's time for a liver detox. Because that's where that comes from. And if that's what you need, just DM me.
Yeah. Well, and I would point out too that, again, there's so many people who are trying to fall into a box or a camp or whatever. They want to argue with somebody or be on the right team or the right side. And that's a tactic that's used to divide us. And we have more and more of these. It's a political tactic to divide us. and recognize those traps, because they're about confusing you and harming you. Choosing a diet, the way we see people doing this, it's actually harming everybody, and it's not helping anybody, because we're not focusing on healing anybody, and it's focusing on the wrong things. It's a distraction. So the issue isn't diet.
It's a waste of life, really.
It is.
It's not good energy, not good for anyone. So you can point out your opinion, but be kind about it and explain why you're saying what you're saying. Maybe less misunderstanding happens. And do what's best for you and best for, hopefully, your environment. And I just wish everyone did what's best for all of us as best as possible. And of course, if you're gonna eat animals, that's gonna involve killing no matter what. But I understand it, and there's better ways of doing it as far as for the animals' lives. Personally, I don't want to see animals killed, so that's just the thing I have. But I understand there's many different ways of doing it, and certain ways are better for them while they are alive, and better for the environment and the ecosystem and the microcosm and all that. So there's better ways of doing it.
Yep.
I just don't want to be part of it.
And it should be your choice. You shouldn't be forced to do one or the other.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's beautiful. I think you have a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it. And you can find out more about both of us in our links below.
Thanks for listening and watching.